It's official. Mason Rudolph, breaking, has agreed to a 2-year, $8 million deal with $4.5 million to return to the Steelers per Mike Garafolo. So there you go. This is at the very least, who the Steelers' backup's going to be. Now there's reports coming out that Russell Wilson is going to the New York Giants for an interview and the Cleveland Browns while he's on the Pat McAfee show talking about how he loves the Steelers and doesn't want to play anywhere else and saying all the right things and telling you everything you want to hear. That's what Russell Wilson is. He's a yes man. He's just going to tell you what you want to hear, and now he's listening to other offers, so who knows what's going to happen with that. I don't think Cleveland's a realistic option for Russell Wilson. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring him in. New York, maybe. I mean, it's a big market. It's a historic franchise. They'll probably shell out a lot of dough to Russell Wilson. So, I mean, that's a possibility. And now Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Schefter's talking about it could be 2 to 3, 4 weeks for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision. So, he basically wants whatever team to roll out the red carpet for him. So honestly, I think Mason Rudolph's never got a real shot at being a number one quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They drafted him to be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger to replace him. And then all of a sudden they flipped script and went to Kenny Pickett and then went and signed Mitchell Trubisky, one of the worst signings ever probably for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky was terrible. That was a total bust signing. Kenny Pickett was one of the biggest busts probably in Pittsburgh Steelers history at the quarterback position. He was absolutely terrible. And somehow, some way, Tomlin replaced him for Devlin Hodges. So I think Tomlin always had it out against Mason Rudolph ever since that Myles Garrett thing. And, you know, he kind of got a bad rep after that Myles Garrett thing because Myles Garrett painted a picture of Mason Rudolph, to which the NFL investigated and found there was no truth to it. So you can believe what you want to believe with that. But I believe Mason Rudolph really never had an opportunity. He was always behind Ben. And the chances he got to start, he was basically the backup thrown in on a roster that didn't have a lot of talent, that was built around that big Ben Roethlisberger contract when he was on the tail end of his career. And he was just not the same. The offensive line was terrible. James Conner was the starting running back. Randy Fichtner was the offensive coordinator. You think the offensive line's bad now? It was way worse when Mason Rudolph was the quarterback. So now, he's stepping into an offense that actually has I think Juju was the number one wide receiver too. So Juju's like a number 3 who's playing the number 1 wide receiver. So, I mean, Mason now got 2 number 1 wide receivers, and number 3 in Austin out the slot. Pretty good solid tight end in Pat Freiermuth in, Washington. Need to get the running back situation set up, but I honestly think Mason Rudolph has a lot of talent. Mason Rudolph has a cannon of an arm. He's a smart quarterback. He knows how to stand in a pocket. He knows how to go through his progressions. He ran a pro-style offense at Oklahoma State. He was an All-American. He has some of the most passing yards in the NCAA history. Mason Rudolph can really air the ball out. And honestly, for this cheap deal, why even go with Aaron Rodgers? Go out there and get a Trey Lance and then draft a quarterback. And let's try to develop a quarterback. Hey, we can have Mason for 2 years on the cheap, and we can build a great, amazing roster around these quarterbacks, even a Trey Lance. I mean, look at DK Metcalf. Look, George Pickens, I wear 14. DK Metcalf, I wear 14. That's my bike. And then there it is with the Russell meeting with the different people. So, I mean, there it is. That was a bad meme I was going to send to somebody. But I think Mason Rudolph can honestly be the starter for a year. He could be a stopgap, bridge gap. That's what he should have been in the first place. They never should have drafted Kenny Pickett. Or if they drafted Kenny Pickett, they never should have signed Mitchell Trubisky and used that $10 million, $11 million. You could have went and got another wide receiver. You could have went and got a running back. You could have went and got a center. You could have went and did something with that money that they gave Mitchell Trubisky. It was a waste of money. And now, they're bringing him back on a very cheap deal. And I think Trey Lance has a ton of potential. Bring him in and draft a Jackson Dart. Draft a Will Howard in the 3rd or the 4th rounds. and see what you can get with those guys. And then if there's a big name free agent quarterback next year that you like, offer him a deal. If not, if there's a quarterback on the draft board that you like, make a deal. If Mason actually steps in and balls out with all this talent around him on that $4 million deal, hey, I mean, those last 3 games he played the year he led the Steelers in the playoffs and saved the season, Mason played pretty good. And now you got a lot more talent around him. We'll see. I honestly think Wilson or Rodgers will be back, and Mason's going to be the backup, but I don't know, man. Who knows? Russell's not sitting around waiting, and Aaron Rodgers is playing games and wants teams to roll out the red carpet for him. He wants to put on a Diva Circus show like Brett Favre. He's ending his career like Brett Favre. And he's selling shirts, and he's selling stories, and he's, doing the Pat McAfee show, and, he's looking for his life. He's more worried about his life after football now than his life with football. So, honestly, Mason still, he wants to prove something. These guys just want to make big bucks. And who knows? Mason's hungry. He might be the best option, honestly, to start a quarterback for the Steelers this year.